Welcome back to Hoochos. Today on Hoochos, I have Shane from MyGrow here. And Shane, would you like to introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, how are you? Thanks a million for having me on. Yeah, I'm Shane from a company called MyGrow, and I make grow lights, but also have the MyGrow YouTube channel and Instagram and Facebook channel, which is dedicated to grow lighting. So, do a lot of videos about grow lighting technology, how to set them up, um, advice, comparisons, all that kind of stuff. Everything grow lighting related, really.
I have to admit, I've been watching you since before my channel even started, and it's an honor to have you on. So I'd like to ask you a couple of questions on behalf of my audience about grow lights. So to start with, when would you generally use grow lights?
Yeah, so like we've got a perfectly good natural grow light above us every day, the sun, which provides life for all us gardeners, but not all of the time, and not always with the best environmental conditions for what we want to grow. So for those who have harsh-ish winters anyway, or dark winters, dark cold winters, growing continuously growing throughout the year is a possibility now by using indoor lighting. So whether it's your leafy greens or herbs or whatever, that you can have a fresh supply grown in your garage or your kitchen to carry you through the winter. Um, and then for specialist plants, where, as I said, you might want to keep particular environmental conditions. So, it could be specialist growers of ornamentals like orchids and that kind of thing. Where there's great value in having that controlled environment. And also for a lot of growers that you can see them. So you've got this little garden inside your house. Some people keep them in the living rooms. They're quite spectacular, actually, if you see them. So two scenarios really, which is controlled environment indoors for basically expensive or exotic plants, and then being able to grow continuously throughout the year. And that really is most important or most applicable, I suppose, to to things like leafy greens and herbs, where to contrast it against growing vegetables, there's not a huge amount of point, for example, in growing potatoes or carrots or root veg or whatever indoors, or tomatoes with grow lights. And because it's very expensive, they've a long life cycle, so it takes a lot of light over a lot of time to grow them. And then what you're getting in the end isn't worth very much for the amount of input that you've had in terms of energy and cost and everything. Whereas with say, lettuces, or as I said, herbs, you could be growing a crop in 10 days, really. And it takes quite not very much light to grow enough to feed a family in those nice sort of light leafy greens. It's certainly what I do at home, and it's a lot cheaper than going to the supermarket. And as I said, it could be quite nice because you can have your little garden indoors, and it's a nice little green area to sort of potter around in the winter when outside is is not very
Freezing cold.
hospitable. Yeah.
Just before we turned record on, I was just showing Shane, I've got and I'll cut away to this, but I've got the MyGrow array set up over some cracky and deep water culture systems at the moment growing lettuce. And I mean, it's bitterly cold here in Queensland, subtropical Queensland. In the middle of winter, but I can see how like it would feed a family that setup, you know.
It doesn't take more than, it could be as little as 50 watts, could be providing enough light for quite a large area of leafy greens, because they don't require a huge amount of energy, a huge amount of light. And in that case, it can be really advantageous.
Especially with the dimmable lights like yours. What is a grow light?
Yeah, so a grow light is really a dedicated fixture. It's a light source like any other, like you have at home. Most of them these days are LED because they're the most efficient and most reliable. And really, they're just in a shape and style and format that suits providing a relatively high light intensity compared to lighting for people, and have certain features which make them suitable for putting in a garden so that they can withstand a little bit of damp and a little bit of dirt. And as you say, have things like dimming availability, and are really just specified for growing. I see a lot of videos online which say that grow lights are overpriced, and that they're it's not worth it to buy a grow light, that you should just buy regular lights. And in some cases that's true. If the grow light is overpriced, then it's not worth buying. But the cost per watt or the cost per light output of grow lights in most cases is far less than a domestic bulb. So if you're to use, say, a Philips 13-watt LED light bulb, and say take the cost of buying 50 watts of Philips light bulbs, often that's more than it would be to buy the equivalent grow light, and often less effective, and not as efficient. So it's cost of grow lights has come down very significantly the last while, and they have become a little bit more user friendly. So in the past, there was a lot of these blurple lights around, these red and blue lights, and kind of going to give out this
Yeah.
very garish light, and it was not nice to have around or to be around, and the plants didn't even look nice either. Whereas now a lot of them are white at light output, so they look a lot more pleasant. They used to be very industrial looking, so quite crudely finished.
Mm.
Now they're a little bit more elegant. And more reliable and cheaper. It's a bit like everything else, that this new tech comes out, and it takes a little bit of a while for the quality to be refined and the cost to come down. But we're pretty much there now, and
Yeah.
you got lots of options, but still a lot of relatively low quality stuff out there. Like Amazon is just absolutely full of junk. Every once in a while for my channel I do a test of an Amazon light, and there's a lot of junk out there. So I would say if people are looking for them, try to buy it from somebody established and reputable, and please avoid Amazon. I think Jeff Bezos's yachts are big enough. We
Yeah,
don't need
yeah.
to fund them anymore.
It's crazy the lights I get sent on this channel because I do some reviews. I've sort of stopped over time, like slowed down massively. But some of the lights I was getting at the start when is it the Infinity boards when the first ones came out after
Yeah.
the boxed fixtures with the fans in them.
Yeah.
Some of them were just atrociously made, and I actually had to refuse to review a few of them that were sent to me because I was like, this is dangerous.
Yeah, no, I've had the same, but the market has kind of weeded out that junk
Yeah,
over the years. There was a bit of an explosion in manufacturers all vying for this new business. But a lot of the bad ones basically have fallen by a wayside.
Yep.
And there's enough time has passed now, that you can see people who have a relatively long-term reputation, as opposed to somebody just trying to make a quick book or two,
yeah,
But notwithstanding what I just said, if you want to set up a little grow operation at home in your kitchen and grow some leafy veg, taking a few domestic bulbs and putting them over a little 12-inch tray, and just growing some cut and come again lettuce,
Mm,
perfectly fine, perfectly fine. And
yeah,
you'd be surprised how much you can do with very little. And if you have some old light bulbs and light fittings around, and you want to have a go, just have a go.
yeah, that's it.
Set them up and see what happens, and just start, and have a little bit of fun with it. And
Yep,
don't think that you have to spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to set yourself up. You don't. You can usually do it, start off with the stuff that's around you,
yeah,
and just see if it suits you. And you could be growing on a window ledge and just supplementing with a little bit of light.
mm,
Growing a little single pot of lettuce under one single desk lamp, and you find it fun. It's In our kitchen now, we have a little setup on a shelf, just with a little strip light, two 12-inch trays, and we just rotate those trays around with different herbs and lettuces. And I just kind of like that bit of green being there. And it's something that you just go over and you potter with and you poke at and then you use for for your meals. So it's just get going. Don't worry about spending a lot of money.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I've got a that you can see behind me. That whole wall is powered by an 800-watt fixture. I love having all the stuff inside. It just there's something magical about like this. It feels like a grotto, and having all the hydroponic systems running as well with the water running and everything. It's like I come in here and I have a cup of tea and I'm just like, this is great. And if I think that mental relaxation that you get from having those plants indoors, it's worth every cent of power that I pay for it.
Yeah, and just talking about power there, so probably the very most an indoor home grower for growing greens and veg might use would be maybe 100 watt, 150-watt fixture. Um, and it could be even far less than that. But if you take it that it's 100 watts and you have the lights on for 10 hours a day, that's about a kilowatt a day, 1 kilowatt hour a day. And depending on where you are, that could be between what, I don't know, in Australia, but somewhere between, say, 15 to 30 cent a day. So a couple of bucks a week at most.
Yeah.
And for that, you would get, as I said, more leafy veg than probably you can use. You'd be really
Yeah.
surprised at how much. So you could be growing up to maybe three or four 12-inch trays in that. And you'd be surprised how much you'd be harvesting.
Well, I mean, you just have to take your grocery bill and look at how much lettuce is costing you per week and go, ah, you know, once that,
And that's
yeah,
Yeah, and that's where the sweet spot is really because, for me, it's things like coriander and basil, and parsley and all these things that I use every week at home in the kitchen. And yet, if I'm to buy them from the supermarket, I buy them in these little plastic boxes, and they're sort of nitrogen packed, frozen, or refrigerated for a good while.
odds are
Quite a lot of
they're already hydroponic as well.
Yeah. They're coming from the same process,
Yeah.
and most of the energy for these things is coming from the seed itself. You've got a little bit, depends on what you like to do in terms of medium. Uh, Personally, I just use peat moss. It's a very light peat moss. It's got a little bit of organic material in it.
Mm.
And when I'm finished, I just grind it all back up again. So roots of everything that was there before,
Yep.
and just grind it back up again and turn it over and use it again.
Yep.
And I do that quite a lot. I very rarely have to replace it, unless something goes south and it gets a little rotten or smelly.
Mhm.
And so all in terms of other materials is very little required. And you can do clever things with trays, with keeping them watered, where you can do it with a little Venturi system that just sucks up water from a source, or little drippers.
Mm.
So you don't have much manual intervention at all. And when you go away, or if you forget about it, it's not going to die, because they couldn't dry out those trays quite quickly.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you can get a setup that's low tech, doesn't require a lot of maintenance, and be quite highly productive for, if we put it all together, what, 150
Yeah. And
would
then
have
the
you
running
set up?
cost is your hydroponic nutrient, which is if you get granular dry, next to nothing. Water
Yeah.
and your grow light running costs.
It's really cheap. And if you look at the amount that you harvest over time, you're making back your money in months. So yeah, it from a economic and an environmental perspective,
Mm.
for me, it makes a lot of sense. And as I said, that's really with the tech, the price of the tech and the efficiency and the reliability of the tech from a lighting perspective coming down has enabled that.
The next question. Well, do you have to use a grow light, or will other lighting sources work?
Yeah, not at all. No, you don't have to use a grow light. They are there's a little bit more to pay up front because it's a specialist fixture, but generally they are much more efficient than your home fitting. Probably about twice as efficient as using a domestic bulb or domestic light strip. So you can get fixtures that are designed for garages and for the warehouse lighting and all
Mm.
sorts of different types of panel fixtures for sort of domestic or industrial use. As I said, it'd be rare enough these days to find one that per watt is cheaper than a grow light because grow lights have really come down. So you can, but you're likely to spend more on electricity over time. So
Running
that's the
costs.
downside. Yeah, yeah. So it'll be a higher running cost because they're not as efficient. So the good quality grow lights would use high quality LEDs, high quality power supplies, all efficient. And they also are designed, excuse me, to reflect that or to direct that light down onto a given area efficiently and with a good spread. Whereas with domestic bulbs, um,
They have diffusers,
for
right?
example, they
And
have
that's
diffusers. They're designed to send light everywhere. Yeah,
mm,
so it's a bit like if you're using if you're designing a watering system to water
mm,
your trays. You don't want sort of a a spray nozzle that sprays out everywhere and misses everything but the tray that you're trying to direct it
yeah.
on. And you don't want a hose that just annihilates the center of your tray either. You want something that sort of sprinkles it over the given area effectively, um, not in an even way, and
Mm,
you don't want too much overspill. So you don't want to be spraying that light everywhere. And that's what I
mm,
mean about efficiency. It's not necessarily the efficiency of the LEDs in the bulb or the bulb itself, but often it's the combination of the LEDs, how they're spread out on the fixture. Do they have reflectors with them to direct them down?
This is
That
getting
type of thing.
a
So
little bit beyond what we were meant to talk about, but I mean, penetration of canopy as well from a spread out light is a lot better because you're getting a, around the leaves rather than just a single point.
it's just a uniformity that is difficult to achieve with domestic bulbs. But as I said earlier, if you're getting started, you don't want to spend the money and you just want to see, grabbing a few domestic bulbs that you have, you can make a little reflector. Sometimes you might have a desk lamp, for example, that has a reflector in it, and
Mhm.
just stick them over a pot, get going, see do you like it and do you enjoy it, and if it's your thing and you get a little bit of a buzz from it, then maybe go the next step and get something more dedicated, such as a dedicated grow light.
Yeah. You've got a video about using Philips bulbs as well, haven't you? And I can link that below. So the next question I've got for you is, what color light is best for plants?
Okay, so all light will grow plants is the short answer, and there has been a lot of sort of marketing talk about special spectrum and the special recipe of light and all this sort of stuff. It's nonsense. Any light will grow plants, and it particularly if you have a white light, so white, if you remember back to school days, white is a
Mm,
mixture of blue, green, and red light, all mixed together makes white. So anything that you see as a white light has a mixture of blue, green, and red wavelengths, and
mhm,
is very similar in terms of what plants see to the sun, and will grow plants perfectly well. There's a little bit of complexity in there if you really want to go searching for it, where a cooler white light, so one which appears with a bit more of a blue tint to our eye, will generally, blue plants do respond to the proportion of blue in the spectrum. And if it's a very cool white, plants will generally grow a little bit more dense and short. If it's a warmer light, so one that appears more sort of orange or yellow tinted to our eye, they have less blue in them, and plants will grow relatively a little bit taller. Um, But for our purposes, what we're talking about here at home, growing on a shelf or, just a little operation, growing leafy greens, doesn't matter at all. There was a lot of marketing nonsense, and still is, unfortunately, talked about by grow lighting companies about having special spectrum. But if you look carefully at what most grow lights are specified today, they are very, very similar, and that's for a reason. They're a white light. Sometimes they have these little red LEDs in there as well, which they're only in there for efficiency. So red LEDs put out more power, which is the light for plants, but they basically put out more light per watt than the white ones. So they're almost like this little turbo booster in the
Mhm.
system that gives you a little bit more light output per watt with them in it. So they're kind of nice to have, but not necessary. So yeah, any light will do. What is different is the quantity of light. So in terms of what we are comfortable with, so we can go into a room. There's a 13-watt LED light in the room, and it'll illuminate the room uh, perfectly for our eyes. So we can see perfectly with that level of light intensity. Plants need something more close to what the sun gives out.
Mm.
And that usually would be somewhere between about 10 and 30 watts per square foot of LED, which is quite high. So if you
It is
consider
good,
that,
yeah.
for one tray, you might need, say, for example, 15 watts. That would be the equivalent that we would use to, in some cases, illuminate a whole room. So we're using quite a lot of wattage in terms of compared to what we're kind of used to as needing for humans. But even if you have one 13-watt light, you know that you can grow something. It's just a relatively small area, but that little small area will be highly productive.
Mm.
You'll get quite a lot out of it because it's getting consistent light day after day. So you'd be surprised what you can do with a relatively small amount.
So that actually covered my next question, which is how many watts do I need? If you were looking for a grow light to say, grow some leafy greens, like not fruiting plants, just some herbs or something in the kitchen, what would your like aim for wattage be?
Yeah. So again, let's say take a foot square. Um, so for a foot square to grow leafy greens, you would need somewhere in the region of about, as I said, 10 to 15 watts.
Okay.
If you're growing things a little bit more ambitious, things that might fruit or flower, using a bit more energy, you would probably aim up at the 20 to 30 watts per square foot, that sort of region.
My final question is how would you set up a grow light in the scenarios that we've been talking about?
If you're using a dedicated grow light, often they will tell you what area they would cover. So if you imagine you have the light above the grow area
Mhm.
and you're trying to direct that light down onto the plant canopy. So imagine the plant canopy is like a solar panel. And so all those leaves are going to, either fill that tray or those pots that you have arranged underneath the fixture. Ideally, if you can, it's nice to have reflective walls around. Now, that might be as simple as just standing up a few bits of board around the edge and just painting it with white emulsion. Um, you can use reflective material. Often indoors, it's a little bit ugly. If you're in a shed or a greenhouse, you probably don't care. So, you could be using something as simple as just the shiny side of aluminium foil.
Mm.
Anything that's bright and reflective will do. And that's just corralling that light in. So if you imagine the light is coming down from the light source, you have your target under here, your plant canopy. If some of that light overspills, it's wasted. So if you can put in a wall and sort of bounce that light back in, it'll make it more effective. So trying to corral it in and uh, and then to have the right height and the right dimming adjustment. So again, the grow light manufacturer, wherever you're buying them from, should tell you what the optimum hang height over what area it covers. So say a 2 foot by 2 foot space, and you're using, it would be probably around a 100 watt light, and usually they'll tell you to hang it somewhere between 12 inches to about 18 inches above that area. And that's high enough that it'll spread the light over the total area, but not too high that all the light is going everywhere else other than down onto the trays or the pots that you're using. And then a timer. So you plug it into a timer. You can use a mechanical or electronic timer. I still use the mechanical timers with the little push-in things, and you just set a daylight cycle. Um, for doing it, we want to be highly productive, have a high number of hours per day, push it up to 16, 18 hours a day, whatever you want to do if you want to really push the plants and grow a lot. And if you're doing it just for fun and you're not too bothered about productivity, you could be running it for as little as 5 or 6 hours a day. So really it's up to you in terms of how hard you want to push the plants after that.
Yep, absolutely. So this has actually been a very basic talk about grow lights. We've just been covering essentially the how to get into indoor growing if you want to grow some greens at home. But if you would like to see a little bit more in-depth interview with Shane, just let me know in the comments below. I'd love to pick your brain again, mate.
Yeah, I'd be delighted. And yeah, if anybody wants to go into a deeper dive into any of these topics, you can check out the My Grow Lighting channel, and we go into all sorts of geeky details about grow lighting and setup. So you can fill your boots there.
Absolutely. And he also supplies some really great quality grow lights. I can attest to their quality myself. You've seen them over and over producing results on my channel. So thank you for sending me out those grow lights. And there's more coming in the near future as well.
There is indeed.
All right. Well, thank you for being on Hoochos today, Shane. It was an honor and a pleasure. And hopefully I'll talk to you soon.
Yeah, many thanks. Talk to you soon.
So thank you for joining us today here on Hoochos. Head over to the MyGrow YouTube channel and the MyGrow website if you're interested in both grow light information and really good quality grow lights. These lights have been powering a bunch of grows. I'd say there's probably like 5 or 10 videos that I've used them in, and they just produce consistently fantastic results. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Hoochos. Please leave a comment if you want to see more episodes like this. I love chatting with Shane, and I think there's a lot more information that we can extract from him. Happy hydroponicking, and I'll see you next time on Hoochos.